Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to, I don't even know what we call this thing, but apparently it's podcasting at a distance. Here's my friend, Mr. Ironside. He doesn't wear kilts, but I think he would do well in one. He also likes the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's about all I know about him. So he's going to tell us about himself. And, we're going to go to this thing, as you guys know. It's going to be fun. So, Andrew, thank you for coming. It's been awesome to have you, know you as a distant friend, and be excited to see you, I think, once every 5 years.
We've been practicing the distancing, so we're okay.
It's true.
This is not different for us.
Last time we saw each other was the blood moon, so we're doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. Andrew, tell us about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm in Toronto right now. Obviously, this is a crazy time. You said not to talk about the coronavirus, but
I did not say not.
It's the first thing that comes to mind. In Toronto, from a town north of the city, a small town there, but been in Toronto for a little while. That's where I met my wife, and we met volunteering with a mobile outreach with Youth Unlimited, which is Youth for Christ Canada, and they hand out sandwiches and supplies to people on the streets.
Was it love at first sight?
I don't know if it was at first sight, but I do remember when she came on. It's a mobile RV, and I remember when she came on, I was like, "Oh, this girl's kind of cool." And then I found out she had a boyfriend in Ireland. So
you went by the thought, like, just because there's a goalie and that doesn't mean you can't score. Is that your philosophy was on that one?
Something like that. Yeah. And no, so we were just good friends for the year, and It was cool to meet her in a context where you're serving like that, seeing a lot of vulnerable people and seeing her heart for, people who are really hurting and broken. And so that was a cool context to get to know someone in a friendship. And then after a year, when they weren't dating anymore, I started talking to her and we started dating. So that's always been a cool kind of foundation for us.
Were you excited when she broke up with her then boyfriend? Like, were you like counting the days, which is like reasonable for you to then go ask her out or like approach that area, or what?
I forget the timing of it all, but there was a few things that clearly it was supposed to be, because we were volunteering there. Okay. I was working at a pub downtown. I moved to the city when I was 19 on Queen Street in Bathurst with a few friends from school, and got a job at this pub. But then I also got a job at the church as the youth pastor. And so I was working at the bar by day and the church by night. Sometimes the opposite. So a double life. Yeah. And no, not really. It was actually great, and I learned a lot about people if you've seen that Simpsons clip where like the world is ending. Actually, I've seen it a lot right now because of all that's going on, and all the people in the pub, in the bar, go back to the church, and everyone in the church goes over to the bar. Sorry.
Okay, really? There's a
It's just type in Simpsons end of world church bar. They swap sides. Anyway, yeah.
Keep going. Find it there. I'll find it.
So anyway, I was working there, and then I got this job at the church, and as the youth pastor, and I went back on the RV for the Youth Unlimited, the light patrol there, and I told Steph and the other volunteers, I said, "Hey, I got this job at a church in Etobicoke," and she said, "Oh, which one?" I said, "Well, it's called Westmount." That's what it was called at the time. Okay. And that ended up being the church where she was going as well. She was living with a family and attending that church. So we already had one connection, and then this was kind of a second one. So we started hanging out, and then, is it there? It's like it's not even a video. It's like a GIF. Like, it's quick.
Oh, it's a GIF. Okay.
But they literally just, in one of the scenes, you see them like the world is ending, so they swap places. But
okay, end of the world. Okay, yeah. Hold on, we're almost there. If we don't find it on this search, we're moving on.
Yeah, no worries.
Where is anime?
Did you type in bar and church?
Let's try that one.
Yeah, you can type in bar and church.
End of world. End of the world. bar. Okay.
I don't know, man. I don't know why it's not showing up. It's a real thing, though.
I sure it is. Oh, there it is. This must be it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See that? Yeah, the world's ending, and then they all filter out, and they see it, and then they switch places for their final moments. So it's funny. Yeah, it was a cool time. Just being to do both of those. I mean it. Like I really believe that I was supposed to be there. I think I learned more spending time as a young man, being in a restaurant, pub, Irish pub, working at a church, volunteering at the homeless outreach. It just gave me a lot of perspectives as I had first moved to the city and started meeting a lot of people and really just formed my faith. I remember, because I was in church for most of my life. My parents started going to a church when I was 8. I can tell you that story later because it ties into my work now. But so faith was important to me for sure, and always had shaped my life, even in high school. But I remember being 19 there and 20 and working at the restaurant and talking to people there about God and the world, and none of them were religious at all. And then going on the mobile outreach for the homeless youth, and on like a cold night in the winter, and some people going back to sleep under the bridge, and then we'd have a time of prayer after. And I remember like wrestling in my prayers even early on, because it's like, how do you pray for someone who's just had some soup and had a good conversation, and then has gone back with their addictions and their pain and their loneliness to sleep under the bridge? And so how do you pray for them, right? And a lot of those prayers were like there weren't words. It was like I would just start, I'll be like, God, and I would say, like, I don't know what to pray right now. I know you love these people, and this is really hard, and I'm thankful that we got to see them tonight, but man, just please take care of them as they go, because they've got no one else right now. And that forms your prayer life, right? Like it's one thing when you're distant from suffering and hurting to pray whatever. But when the rubber hits the road, you're like, how do I pray in the midst of this, right? What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like it's
definitely. Do you think that's why people would rather throw money than get involved?
That's a good question. I think that, yeah, there's definitely a safety. I mean, money is important. I believe people have it on their heart to give as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's definitely easier in a sense to do that than to be there and to see it. It's just our human nature, right? If you can stay disconnected. Yeah. But I mean, a lot of people do give. I don't want to discredit. Even my own parents are people that give. I've always been so generous. I know that's not what you're saying, but
no, I guess what I'm saying is like how people try to distance themselves from, and like there's people that have on their heart, like they feel they need to give money, and that's the best. That's their best that they offer. Is that right?
Yeah.
It was a guy even in the area that we work who's like, hey, listen, I'm good at making money and I'm terrible with people. So let me make the money, you be with the people.
Yeah.
And so that points to like, that's where he plays his role in the part. But what I'm saying, I guess more is like how people distance themselves. Like you have people who do grandstanding, like they stand on some issue and then they actually don't do anything other than say something. And then they hide behind the guys, I'm creating awareness. I'm like, well, really? 50 other people before you already created awareness. Now, what about you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And I don't know. What do you say?
Yeah, it's true. I think that you can talk about it a lot, or you can post about it a lot. But again, yeah, when you're in those spots where you're on the RV at 12:30 in the morning, and you've just finished, and you see people walking off into the distance, that's where you're like, okay, what do I really believe about this, right? And there's a lot of good in it, and there's a lot of wrestling. Like that's the word I would use. It just forces you to wrestle with your own personal convictions. Like you ask yourself, like, is this even working? Are we like we gave someone a meal and that's good, and I think they felt welcome and just valued being here in the safe place for 10 minutes. But like, is there more we should be doing? Is this ineffective? You know? And I think that's kind of should be our disposition of, even if we are advocating for something, if we have a cause, that we're continually assessing and wrestling and hearing voices, you know, that are forcing us to wrestle through. Like, am I just doing this on a surface level, or am I actually making a difference? And yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but I just think that it's really important to allow yourself to have that time of processing, of angst, of wrestling through it. I think there's something holy and good about it. So,
well, and I think that like that's one of the things. Like, if you're not wrestling with it, it's because you're not really. I don't think you're invested in it.
Yeah.
Because that means to me, you're not contemplating the issue that you're in. Like, so if you lose a game, a sports game, and you're not contemplating about the sports game, then that game means nothing to you, really. If you're not thinking about what could I have done better, if you're not wrestling with it, how invested are you? You don't have skin in the game. You don't have mental skin in the game. And you know, working with youth, working with the homeless, when you see that, you say, do I have, like, is what I'm doing effective? And I mean, I think a lot of youth workers have gone through, I mean, especially in our organization, there's no way you haven't had one night where you thought, like, am I doing what I'm doing? Is it useless?
Yeah, all the time.
You're like, the thing is because we don't see in a result-driven culture of the West, we don't see the immediate results, and we become victim of wanting to see the immediate result. Mm-hmm. And we might just play this like if this is the lifespan of somebody, right? We might only play this part of that lifespan where they get to that goal, and we might not ever see the celebration of that process, right? I've been reading through you know, the prodigal son, just taking a look at it again, and just like, there was people probably praying for him that didn't get to see him come back. There was probably people thinking about this whole thing and didn't come back. There was probably people who made that meal for the party who didn't get to participate. Mm-hmm. So like we're like, I mean, that's part of the humble pie of the whole thing of investing in other people. You might never see the result. Mm-hmm. Like, as a football coach, I get a chance every 4 years to see it. So like, it takes 4 years for you. Your first development.
What do you coach? What age group?
I coach would be prep school. So that would be like just before university, but the Quebec system's a little different. So you could be turning 20 and go to there. You could also stay at 20, but you lose a year of eligibility in university. Mm-hmm. But it's often 16 to 18 around that category. So they've left high school and now they have CEGEP. So we go to, I think, Sec 5, which would be equivalent of grade 11. Mm-hmm. And then grade 12 would be what we are. Mm-hmm. It used to be like what it used to be OAC, used to be CEGEP, but now there's no OAC, and they even moved grade 12 down, whatever. Mm-hmm. So first you get to see them improve, and you get to see them come back next year, so you get to see that stuff. But then you really get to see if they get to go to university, right? Because that's the first, like, that's your success. You're like, okay, we got them into university. And the height of your success is when they get to go to like an American college or a big school, right? Mm-hmm. And so then you feel even better. But then every once in a while, one of your players graduates from university and then goes to the next level, and only from a sports perspective. I'm not talking about academics. I'm not talking about life choices. I'm not talking about anything else, okay? So just totally sports. Like, I have 2 guys that I've coached that are actually 3 guys now that are going into the draft this year, one of which had an NFL camp, and I just missed coaching his brother the year before. So it's like, you're in that circle. And there was 2 guys I coached that were like, you know, one was at Penn State, the other one's down in Louisiana, and like, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's where the success comes from, like, from a football perspective.
Yeah.
But then even later is when they start asking like life and spiritual questions. Yeah. Like 10, 15, you know, like, so I've been doing this for 7 years now. So now there's time for people who have graduated, take a couple years in the workforce. And so now they ask those questions, right? Because now they have a job, they have income, and they're like, so what? Like, what now?
Yeah, what now? Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to say success. That's a question I wrestle with a lot. And our pastor has really encouraged our group many times that as a Christian, in the eyes of God, we believe that success is being faithful. So you do your part, you do your, like you said before, not everyone knows what's going to happen. Not everyone has the ability to see the end result. but if each person is faithful to their role, and it's just, you could say like on a football team, right? Like if every player is faithful to their job, that is success. If you do your best and you do your role well and you still lose, it sucks, but you did your best, right?
Right.
And and with working with youth, with people, I don't know if you're like this. I'm definitely a feeler. Like I'm what do they call it? Empath. Like I feel things all the time. I feel like, and I feel the weight of it. I feel the weight of the issues that the youth are facing, or things that are going on. And there's times you can get discouraged by that, right? And you say, like, I don't see all the results, all the change I wish I could see in their lives, even in my own life. But then that call to say, am I being faithful to the task that I'm called to do? Am I investing my time well in these youth? Am I encouraging them? Am I praying for them? Am I having fun with them, right? And there's a lot of peace in that. It's not to say we don't work hard, because we do, but I just mean it's that trust that, hey, I'm doing what I can do here in my place, and I'm trying to be faithful to that. And I think that's the standard. There is no other standard. Otherwise, it's based on things that are outside our control, right? You can't control if the kids get a scholarship. You can't control. They could break I was just talking to someone the other day who was on his way to getting a scholarship for soccer and then broke his ankle and missed out on, right? Like there's things that happen so is that not success, right? Was the people that poured into him and his coaches and his family and everyone around him, did they fail? I don't think so. I think they were faithful to do their part, and that was just his story. So, but I believe in something you said there with, like you said, 7 years now. I've been a similar length of time. I've been for 12 years doing work with the church, and about 7 or 8 with Youth Unlimited, Youth for Christ. And I definitely am a believer in investing in the long term. This year, more than ever, I'm seeing that, where you've journeyed with some of these kids that are older siblings, and now they're in it, and they've started to volunteer, and yeah, you can just feel something different. It's no longer just like, hey, this is a program that we run. They're like, oh, we get that you're invested in our lives and in our community. And I've been really encouraged by that. I would say this is probably the first year I'm really starting to see some of the fruit of that, as they say, where you see the time you put in, and seeing some real encouraging things. So,
well, yeah.
How long have you been in it for?
Youth for Christ, Youth Unlimited. I've been there since 6 years now. 7 years, 6 years. Hold on, maybe I'm going on to my 7, I think, right now. Which I didn't even think was going to happen. That's just the reality of the situation.
I didn't think so either.
In the beginning, I'm like, oh, it's going to last 25 years, like the first week.
Yeah.
And when we started going through all of the fundraising and all of that other stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be gone in about maybe a year and a half.
It is crazy. Yeah, it's a lot up front.
Yeah. So you get there and you're like, okay, so what, what is it now? And it's always this resting. And you said something that I thought was kind of interesting. Now, and I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here.
Sure.
You said, you felt called to do this, and you put that on the onus. You put that on the basis of your faith. Now, I'm a non-faith person. Okay. So how do I find my calling?
Did I say that? Did I? No, I don't know. I don't know if I did, I didn't mean it maybe that way, because I don't know what I believe of calling either. That's something I've been wrestling with for sure. I believe that God makes us who we are in our circumstances and puts things on our hearts. So you're asking, what is a calling, or how do people figure out what they're supposed to do in their life?
Pretty much it's more the second question. I mean, What is a calling? That's a pretty simple thing, like what you feel your purpose to do.
Yeah.
Hit that, and you might know it, and you might bump into it, is what I always say. I'm like, you might know right from now, but you might bump into it, because I was always thinking, like, there's people who never knew that that's what they were called to do, and no one ever spoke it to them, and then now we see them in that role. We say, how else know? Like, how could they do anything else?
Yeah.
I think of Steve Carell from The Office, and I see his character, and I said, who else could he have been?
Yeah.
Who else could he have been on that show?
Did you watch that video of John Krasinski, who plays
Oh,
Jim?
Yeah.
And his Good News Network, and they're talking back and forth.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff.
Oh yeah, it's really funny actually. Some good news. I watched it. I said, "Yep, that's some good stuff right there."
Yeah, but you're right. He is just that. He's just that. That's him. Who else could he be, except for Gru, I guess. If you have kids, yeah. Yeah. I can only speak of my story, I guess. But I believe that people are sometimes have this real strong sense. My cousin was always like, I'm gonna be a firefighter, and he's a firefighter.
Okay.
But I was never like that at all. I valued the people who invested in my life and believed in some of the principles and the faith, and I've always had a desire to change the world, to do something for God and help people. But practically, when I was working at the pub, and then I got an invitation to have an interview at the church for the youth pastor position.
Mm-hmm.
I had the interview, it went well, and they said, think about it, and if you'd like the job, you can have it. And I said, okay, I'll take 2 weeks and think about it. And my personality sometimes is that I don't think about it. So
Okay.
I literally I think it was 2 weeks to the day, the pastor called me. I was asleep, I slept in, being a 19-year-old kid and on your own. And it was 10:30 in the morning, and he wakes me up. He goes, Andrew, are you you never call us back with the job? Do you want it? I was like, yeah, sure. So that's how I decided that I would get into youth ministry.
Okay.
And it wasn't this divine, angelic voice. It was just going with it, just saying, sure, why not? And I've actually found that to be more true in my life, that I feel day by day a lot of promptings, as if it were, whether that's God or whatever you want to call it, telling you to go somewhere, to talk to someone. That happened just the other day, actually. A cool run-in with one of the youth in our community. But in the terms of the big picture, I don't have many times like that where I've felt, yeah, you should do this. Even the light patrol thing, the homeless outreach. It was just our pastor. He was at where I grew up. He's like, hey, you should meet this guy. He does this work. You might want to check it out. I was like, okay, sure. So I don't know. I just think you just kind of go where life takes you. And Jesus, this has come up recently a few times. When Jesus is talking to the crowds of people, and he's talking about John the Baptist, and he says, he basically is criticizing them because he's like, you guys are not happy with anything. Here's John the Baptist. He lives this very strict religious life. He lives in the wilderness. He doesn't drink alcohol. He doesn't really eat any food except for bugs, and wears camel skin. And you guys say he's a nut job, he's demon possessed. And then I come on the scene. Jesus is saying this, and I do drink alcohol, and I do feast, and I hang out with, all these people who you call sinners, and you guys say that I'm a glutton and a sinner, a friend of sinners. But he goes on to say, what matters, the way you know that you're living wisely is what comes of it. So what he means is John the Baptist can live this very strict religious life. Jesus can live this way, where he's, he is at parties with people, and he's sharing the good news of the kingdom of God there. It doesn't matter which route you choose. It's what comes of it, right? It's the fruit of it. And John, there was fruit from his life. People were turning to God, and he was calling out the religious hypocrites. And Jesus was caring for the poor and speaking the good news, and people were being healed, and their eyes were opened, and their lives were changed. And I think before God, that's what he looks at and says, that's the standard, right? So that's it's kind of a tension. I think there is certainly times where God leads you to something, or people feel a sense of responsibility or calling to something in their life, even if they're not religious. But I think also, if you are, no matter what circumstance you find yourself in, if you say, these are the things I'm going to do no matter where I go, that's even with the youth that we work with, who ask which high schools, or sorry, what university should I go to, or who should I date? My answer usually is, well, do your research, look into the programs and the costs and how far it is, and if they're in Toronto, that's a better place to be than in Quebec. But Uh,
Hallelujah.
yeah, but but at the end of the day, what are you going to do if you go to this school?
Yep.
If you go to McGill or if you go to Queens, you go to U of T. What are you going to do when you're there, right? I think God's more concerned about what kind of person are you going to be when you're at that school? How are you going to treat people? How are you going to live out your life and your faith there? I think at the end of the day, it's not about a right or wrong choice. It's what are you going to do with the time God has given you, wherever you find yourself. That's been more my philosophy on life.
Pretty good philosophy right there, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty, I like what you said though. It's like, who are you going to be? Like, instead of saying, okay, I need these circumstances, it's like, who are you going to be inside of the circumstances?
Yeah.
Because every place is going to give you a different opportunity. You might, like, that's why I try to tell football players. I'm like, you might go to out of school and you might play right away, but you might not be a better football player.
That's right.
You might stay here. You might not play for the first 2 years. You might play. You have a better chance of playing in your third year, but you're going to be a way better football player. So what do you want to do? Now, if your goal is to just play university football, then I say, you know what, just go over there and you'll play as much as you want to play. If your objective is to become whatever, a superstar or whatever, well, then maybe you're going to have to cut your teeth on something a little harder. So, and then, like you said, the faith side of me says, God is big enough that you can't make a mistake bigger than he can't fix. That's what I say. Otherwise, God's not God. 2, from a faith perspective, which is step out. You can't know. That's why it's called faith. It's the hope. It's the substance of things hoped for and not seen. So you can't know. Like if I could do my university career over again, I probably would. But I couldn't because of everything that's come of it. So it's like I can't change anything. Even if I wanted to change things, I can't change them because it would ruin all of the things that then thereafter. Now, if I could try to remove pain, which even then I'm not sure I want to remove because that causes something in us. So I don't know, but
yeah, I think the questions like this too are like, my mind always goes to the bigger global picture too. So like, we speak from a place of privilege sometimes where it's like, what should I do with my life? Like I think of people who are in refugee camps who have nowhere, like they're not like, oh, what university should I go to? Or where, like what meal, like it's so basic. So these, if you want to call it a philosophy or a faith approach, like I think God cares for those people just as much as he cares for you and I. And I think that what they're held accountable to is the same thing that we are, which is just, what do you do in your circumstance, right? That's why Jesus like says the woman, the story where the woman, he's watching people put their money in at the church, and like the rich dudes walk up and they like dump up like tons of cash in, and then it says the poor widow comes up and puts like 2 pennies in, is what it says. And Jesus turns to them and says, she's given more because she's given out of her everything. For these guys, that's like, it's nothing. It's like a cup of coffee. And she, with her circumstance, gave out of all that she had. So yeah, like again, I think of people like that. That's where my mind often goes. Like, what about the poor in our midst and in our world? Like, do I believe that their life has no meaning just because they can't achieve all these great things, or they don't have a calling? No, again, I believe like, man, like within those contexts, are they able to love their neighbor? Are they able to sing songs that bring joy to people? Are they able to like show off their soccer moves to their friends and have fun games there? Are they able to care for people when they're dying? Are they able to come around one another with a meal at a wedding? And like that's your calling there. That's your like that's your only choice. So yeah, I don't know. That's where my mind goes a lot. Like I wrestle with lots of the global realities, sometimes too much, but yeah.
But I think it's a good concern, right? Because you again, like I know, speaking from privilege, I said maybe from like a wealth perspective, like we're head and shoulders above like 90% of the world's population. So like you said, like what kind of question are you even asking? Like you're privileged to even ask that question, which university should I go to? That you're in that kind of situation. Whereas the next person's asking, okay, so when's my next meal? How am I going to get that next food? We're worried about like, if I got the shirt that fits well, they're like, do I have a shirt? You know, I always found that interesting. And I think that's one of the things that's really important for young people, like anybody, actually, not even just anybody, is to go on I call it missions trip. And some people call it humanitarian, whatever, but just going on in a place where there's actual deprivation and actual suffering. And it puts into perspective where you are, because nothing better than receiving a youth into your ministry who's just been on a missions trip. They can make anything out of nothing. It's amazing. Because they've seen it done without nothing, and they understand that principle. Like I learned it from and I don't know if she jacked it from somebody, but whatever. I heard her say it, so I'll give her the credit. It's Jeannie Mayo, and she said, "Fun is not an activity; it's an attitude."
Say that again.
Fun is not an activity; it's an attitude. So, like, you can do anything, and anything could be not fun, and anything can essentially be fun, depending on the attitude you carry in it, right? So. You can go to soccer practice and it could be not fun, but you could turn it into fun. It could be the attitude that you approach to it. And somehow when we approach it with a different attitude, or at least an attitude of fortitude, there's like a hope that this is going to pass. And there's a hope that you can kind of find some kind of enjoyment in this. Because I never liked running sprints ever, but I would just have fun and be like, I would turn to my buddy and be like, I'm going to whoop you right now, dog. I'm going to beat you to the line. I would say other things, but I can't repeat those anymore. So
are you fast?
I you know what? For some reason I still am. I thought I'd slow down like substantially. I had to train I just changed the way I train.
All those dumplings you've been eating, eh?
Oh my gosh. I have to do cardio, some kind of cardio element every day now. It just has to happen. Otherwise I will not be able to. And like, I keep myself to a standard. I have this whole thing called no fat pastors. Like, I think it's like a hypocritical statement that we need to they preach your body's a temple or whatever. And then I'm like, yo, you are gigantic.
Well, I won't let you see below my screen here. Let's go.
Now listen, you could be soft. That's cool. I'm okay with that. I understand. What I'm saying is, man, I've been using that line a lot lately. I keep making myself laugh when I say that.
What I'm saying is,
yeah.
It's a good line.
So what you're saying is, now do you know from the Jordan Peterson interview and what's her face there? Kathy Newman. Oh, you got to watch it.
I haven't seen it. Yeah, I'll check it out.
She tries to twist his words all the time. She says, so what you're saying is, and he's like, no.
Oh, that's the one on the news. Yeah, I did see that one. Yeah. It's funny with the being in shape. We do a soccer drop-in program every Friday with high school kids. And a lot of these guys are really good. And I've played soccer my whole life, so I'm able to keep up with them. And you play smarter as you get older, right?
Yep, definitely.
And I'm a defender, so I can see them coming in. A lot of them want to carry the ball the whole way, so I can stop them. But I've noticed, especially since being a dad and with 2 young kids and just the stress of life, that it does catch up to you, right? You start getting that dad gut. And a few times recently, the couple of them were chirping me because I was like keeled over, tired. And I'm like, man, I got to get back into shape here. Like, I'm not in terrible shape, but I got to start making this a priority because I want to be able to show these kids.
Hey, man. And you can make the distance. You can make, like, I thought I'd be like Keith. Like, when I started coaching, I was still like in my prime. Like, I was still in that tail end of my prime. I was, 29, turning 30. I was a freak. I know that. I'm not saying that boasting. I just I look at the numbers that people are still doing and the numbers that I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was on par, if not better. So I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I wish I had Instagram back. I'm kind of happy I didn't have this because I'd have been shirt off all day, every day. Like, that's would have been me. Gosh, it would have been awful. My ego would have been like, it wouldn't even fit in the screen right now. It'd just been like out here. Okay. Like, that would be my head. I'd be like, yo, can we have this podcast? Shawn, get your head inside the screen. But so these guys keep pushing me. And I talk smack. Like, I make fun of every single one of those players when they walk in.
Yeah, it's good for them.
Oh yeah, 100%. Bring them down a couple levels, right? I'm like whether your skin is ashy or you have calves the size of like a camera stand or whatever, I will find something and I will roast you on it. Mm-hmm. I always call the old linemen fat people. Like, I am mean. Okay, 100%. So they're mean to me. Yeah. But then they'll call me out. I know they're gonna call me out because I call them out all the time. And then when I go do it, they're like, like, so that, like, literally that is my objective. My objective is to stay in shape so that I can show them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always have this, I tell everyone, if you can beat me in a race, here, you beat me.
Yeah.
I'll get you a 2.4 of Gatorade. Okay.
There you go.
That last season or whatever. And inevitably someone else, can I get a 2.4 something else?
Yeah.
Like, no, can't do it for you, bud. And so every year, inevitably someone challenges me, right? I'm like, all right. So I know that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to, and I know, like, usually in like January, like I have no takeoff. I have no get off. And like the new gym I was working in, they didn't have like any turf. They didn't have anything. But then eventually they recently got a turf before, like in January. So I was able to start running like earlier this year. And man, I was like flying. I hit like a record box jump for me that I've never done. I was hitting numbers I've never hit before. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. So I was like all excited for like this spring camp to happen, so I could take somebody on and just like not only beat them but dust them. And now that's not going to happen.
That's out the window.
Oh my goodness! And
it's like the fish that got away.
Yeah. Oh my goodness! And I suck at long distance running. Like I'm terrible. I had pneumonia 3 times now. So I have no lung power. Like I am built, and I was already built for like high output recovery, high output recovery. That's how I've been training my whole life, right? Football is 3 seconds of sprint city and then 30 seconds of get your wind back in you again. And then find that ebb and flow, right?
But how are those guys doing now that they can't play either?
I am scared of how fat people are going to be when they come back and out of shape. Like it's going to be a rude away. Like we're going to have to do general calisthenics for everybody, coaches included.
Yeah.
Like how to hold a clipboard properly, how to look angrily at the coach, at the referee on the we have a lot of stuff we need to do, man.
So your season's done though, eh? Have they canceled it?
They haven't because our season actually is in September, so we don't cancel.
Okay.
So we might have it might be gross football that year. Let's be real. It's probably going to be pretty not good. And we have a high level in Quebec because we don't have like, there are a couple of city leagues, but they're not really for the top tier athletes. Whereas in like Ontario, it's kind of like the leagues take the top players and the schools are kind of left with whatever, because that's where everyone goes and looks for better players, right? The universities are checking these club teams out. So it's different in Quebec. Everyone just comes to your school. And so the schools are like highly invested in when it comes to sports. They have coaches dedicated to those sports. So like when I coach a 14-year-old from Quebec and a 14-year-old from Ontario, it's night and day. Like athletically, a lot of times the Ontario kids they're just freaks. Okay. Usually. But they're as smart as a bag of bricks when it comes to football. I'll say something as simple as like what cover 3 is, okay, which would be essentially saying, what formation are we playing in soccer today? Like, are you doing, are you doing a 4-4-3? Like, what are you doing? Like, literally that. And they go,
yeah, they don't know.
Oh, no idea. Zero idea. Can't even line up anybody. Yeah, I'm like, okay. So we got to so I already know they're a year out. Like, I'm like, okay, you're a year out.
It's like the theory of the game, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, you can't just have the theory. You got to have the skill set to go with, right? But they're not going to develop. But second year in, we've had guys who never even played for us and got full rides wherever they went, because their theory was developed. Their athletic skill wasn't there. I mean, was already there. Their ability to execute once they had the ball in their hands or the play was in front of them, no problem. But to get there, to catch the ball, all that stuff, to see how this works, they didn't understand the machine that is created with sports, music, and all that stuff. So we have to create that to help develop that. Yeah, this is going to be interesting because we have a high expectation of sports like at this level. Like we have guys who are like Olympians and all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty cool to watch that happen.
Yeah, I wonder to be an athlete in this time, especially if you're training at that elite level, and then everything put on pause. That'd be hard mentally, because you would just say like, I wonder if people are able to keep up with that routine, right? If they can't get to the gym or they can't get to the swimming pool, or that'd be hard. You put in all this work, and it's
devastating to those Olympians, man. Like, think about it. And something I realized is like, I like going to the gym. I like the process of going to the gym. Like that kind of like, I only have like a 3-minute drive to my gym. And that process, like gets my head and my body kind of mentally ready for this whole deal I'm about to put myself through. But I need that kind of like whatever. In my house, I walk down the stairs and I can't do another burpee to save my life. I'm gonna shoot a burpee if I see another burpee. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. We were lucky though. Like my wife's CrossFit gym, they rented like, so the stores had to close like, I don't know, at 12 o'clock at night about a week ago or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they could take in orders and fulfill the orders if they made their sales before that time. That was kind of right. So they put up, if you want to rent our equipment, you can rent our equipment. So we went and got a bar and some weights, put an order in, and picked up the next day.
Nice.
So at least I have somewhat of a gym, but again, it's still limiting because I don't have a squat rack. I don't have all the other stuff. But I could see how that would be difficult for an athlete because you go in and you're kind of a superstarish a bit, right? You get to say hi to this person, hi to that person, that therapist, this. Then someone's there setting you up for your workout or whatever. This is what you're going to do today. And then you go and execute in in your head, you're like, this is for the thing that I'm like, because lots of those athletes were prepping for their peak. Like they were going to be at peak performance. So now all of a sudden they got to shut down. And then they have to tentatively wait a whole year to rebuild to get into that scent, right?
Yeah.
So like Olympic lifting, which I'm a big fan of, okay? Just because I think it's one of the hardest sports known to mankind because you have to make your money in under a second. Like that's it. And you got 6 opportunities to do that. Mm-hmm. So you have 3 lifts on the snatch and you have 3 lifts on the clean and jerk.
I've been called an Olympic lifter before.
Is it because of the way you look? The Chinese kind of blow that stereotype out of the water, though. They're crazy. But
Chinese are you mean the Japanese?
The
sumo
Chinese
wrestling?
No, sumo wrestling, that's different.
What are you talking about?
Olympic lifting, as in like.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. Whatever. So like.
Oh, because they're not the stereotype. You mean?
They're like diesel. They look like they look pretty much like bodybuilders with oversized legs. That's what they look like, and like so they peak 4 times throughout the year. So they're actually just going to do a contest, their own contest, without so they can keep on their rhythm. Mm-hmm. And I saw online how they're doing it. So these guys stay, they're distance apart. The judges aren't even they're like live feeded, like they have a live feed, and they give their like a thumb, like they give their 3 green lights or whatever for the lifts. It's crazy. But all that's gone. Like all the camaraderie that you build because of that social, and I wonder what the damage is going to be to our society because of the social distancing. Because I felt like we were starting to approach finally not fearing our neighbor as much because there was that kind of time where it was like the boogeyman is out to get you, right? And now we have this there's a boogeyman, but it's not a person. It's a disease. It's a thing. Yeah. It's a virus.
What are you guys doing to stay connected? And
so I'm running. So I do I'm a social guy. I'm like. I was talking with somebody else the other day. I'm like, I feel like I'm both. I get like the worst and best of both worlds. And not to say like I like to talk to people. I like to be around people. And at the same time, I don't like to be around people.
Yeah, I get that.
So I'm like, okay, I'm done. I need to go back. I need to chill. I need to be with my own thoughts. I need to be cause that's where I get creative. That's where I start thinking about things, ponder, whatever. Right. Mm-hmm. And I realized how much I enjoyed just being by myself. So, what I do is I'm okay at home because I'm just chilling. I'm like, oh, right. I don't have to wake up to go do something outside. But then this makes it a long haul if you don't have something to do. So essentially I do my workouts every day, hang out with my kids. So I work out Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, which is the same thing I would do normally. And if I had regular access, I do a radio show every night. Just make it up on the fly, kind of here's my subject, let's talk about it.
Is that I saw it on something on Facebook. Was that?
Yeah, so that's what that is. Okay. I didn't know where it was starting, and then it's hey, we could just do a podcast. And I was trying to figure out how to do it from Facebook Live, but it didn't work out because you can't bring in a guest anymore. They've removed that option. They removed it in December. Go figure. Okay. So I was like, okay. Listening to one of the other guys I listen to in his podcast, they don't do live anymore because they lose money when they do live. So, and I understand because they get copyright infringement a lot because they don't know if that's allowed to be on there or whatever. So I do that as a post. So I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Then I can do that how we're doing it right now. So I do a live every night just to see where people are. And what's crazy is last night I talked about is pornography good?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. How'd that go?
Amazing. One thing I knew was going to happen. Nobody was going to like it was going to be rare. It was going to be people who were really confident were going to respond in there.
Yeah.
But majority of people weren't going to even say they
it's
even.
Like I don't want my name associated with that.
No, right?
I always wondered that with the so in the church, like I think it's important if people have an addiction to like a sexual addiction. But like I was always like, how do you advertise that? Like you get up and put a sign like, hey, like if you have an addiction to sex or pornography, like come on Tuesday nights. And so you drive by on Tuesday, it's like, hey, there's Shawn's car, like in the so like, how do you get around that? But
it's something we need to talk about. And
it is.
And for the first time I had, so like the way I set it up is like I have Zoom also open at the same time, and you can like click in and go Zoom. We could talk like live, you and I, while people are watching the Facebook feed happen. So that's happening. We've had 2 callers in now. Actually, sorry. We had 2. I talked to one. Mm-hmm. There was going to be a third person yesterday, but they just messaged me and then they said, oh, I can just keep messaging you like this. So they were just messaging me live. And that was interesting to see like how many teenagers were watching that show. Mm. And then how many of them were asked that question. And then how many people came and thanked me afterwards for doing that and talking about that subject. Because it's obviously rampant. And could you imagine what it's like now? When you're really stuck at home, right? So I do that every week, every night. My goal was to do it because I thought we were only going to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'm going to do one every night.
How's that working out for you?
You know, at first it was difficult because I was like, how am I going to fill up an hour? Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, I have to shut down in an hour. It's going to go forever. So I usually shut down around 9:30. So I start at 8:30, anywhere 8:30 to 8:45, and then go for an hour. And if someone really cool comes on that I haven't seen in a while, I'm like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? And then I'll shut the live feed down in about 15 minutes, and then we'll do a podcast. But that's what's been happening. So that's pretty cool. And then I preach. I still preach because like obviously like can't go preaching anymore. Mm-hmm. So I preach every Wednesday. So I develop a message, keep doing that so I don't get like out of shape. Mm-hmm. And it's what it's make. And then I go and study all the numbers afterwards. I'm like, so how many people watched it? How long did I preach for? And can I watch myself preach? If I can watch myself preach, then I can be okay with it. When I'm cringing the whole way through this, I'm like,
yeah.
And
it's a different perspective, when you're on the video. Have you been learning a lot from it?
Oh, 100%. I like I'm like, okay. One thing I was already good at was when I started, I said I came to this conclusion with my mentor, and then he kind of pushed it on to me when I said it. He's like, you need to write that down. Preach to one like you would preach to 10,000, and preach to 10,000 like you'd preach to one. That's how you're going to be effective. Hmm. So I was never blinded by obviously it's kind of fun to preach in front of 10,000 people. It's hilarious when you make a joke and at least half the people laugh. So it sounds like everybody's laughing. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's that kind of thing. It's obviously difficult to preach to one person, but the way you're going to reach 10,000 people effectively is if they feel like they're the one person inside that 10,000 is being talked to. Mm-hmm. That's the only way.
Yeah. Our lead pastor always talks about how he tries to keep in mind, kind of as Jesus did, like the different people that might be in the crowd at any given time, speaking to their circumstance. Because it's true, at any given time, if you have a larger audience, you have people who are quite religious, and you have people that hate God, and you have people who are joyful, and you have people who have just lost a child, and you have people who are anxious in this time more than ever, and you have people who are really enjoying their time with their families. So I don't do a lot of speaking like that, but I have a lot of respect for you guys that really put a lot of thought and heart into that. And you can tell when a speaker is prayerfully mindful of that, of who is in the audience. And someone even said, with the question, do you love the people you're speaking to, right? Mm-hmm. I think people who are religious, many religious teachers and speakers have built a reputation of having very bold, grandstanding, like you said earlier, platforms. But it's like there's no tears in their eyes when they're talking about people, right? So do you really love these people? Are you really seeing them as God sees them? I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that's a question. I think that's something that we always have to address. And I always like I say a statement for everybody else, but I'm also saying it to myself. So like, especially when I come to a new group of people, I say, "Hey, listen, I'm like, what was one of the things I say? I say, my hope is that you forget who I am,
Mm-hmm.
that your experience with God and how He speaks to you through this time together is greater than what I say."
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one I say is, I'm not promised this gift tomorrow.
Bonjour.
That's my wife. She's over there.
Comment ça va?
Uh, oh, my son's going cray cray. Okay, I'm gonna finish this last thought and I'm gonna come over. Okay, so so I say like, I'm not promised this gift tomorrow. So I'm gonna give you everything I have right now because the gift might be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I see that in Bible, like like the anointing might be moved, and I might not even know it. And I don't want to have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I also might be called on, like to another stage, doing something else or whatever. So I have to give everything I have every single time. And obviously this time I'm trying to like, okay, I get a little more chance to wordsmith stuff, right? So I'm like, okay, and it just keeps me in my Bible. One of the things that my other I was like, listen, I told my mentor, I'm like, I'm terrible at doing devotionals, like doing the like that practice of doing devotion.
Well, dude, with young kids, man, it's like out the window. Like, how do you?
Yeah, I can't sit for an hour and do it. So what I do now is like, I'm like, okay, so I can prep a message. How do I prep a message? What am I doing? Like, I used to think that it was like unjust for me to do a message because I was like always like, I felt like I was taking from the Bible but not receiving from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And like, which is for me is a different thing. So taking is like, I'm just taking the information, putting it together, making it nice and neat and go. But then I'm not allowing for the words that I'm reading to actually do what they say. Like what I think it's going to do is like affect me as a person, as a human. Right. So my mentor said to me, he's like, Shawn, you have the time that God has allotted you to do what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
You might get 10 hours, you might get 4, you might get 1, but you have to give it all over to Him. And that's okay. You're just telling me that's okay. He might be showing you one specific thing. That's what you need to look at. Whereas somebody else who's doing devotionals every day, that's maybe what the God's using on them. Right. So I was like, which gave me a lot of release in that process. Like, okay, this is what I'm doing. So one, it helps me. It hits a couple of birds with one stone. I'm in the Bible. I'm still relating to people. And I'm working the craft and just trying to get better and better until I can't do it anymore. And that's it. That's kind of my thing on that. And, I watch other people and I got to make sure that, my early days, I was always jealous of other people. I'm like, man, why are they speaking? They're terrible. And they might be terrible, but that's not the way it's supposed to go about. Right.
It creeps in, that comparison with anything. It really does. Even in this time, like with the COVID, and you like look at someone else, like, oh man, they're helping these people, or they're posting this stuff, and you're like, I wish I could do it like that, right? But back to our earlier conversation, it's about like what are you able to do? Can you make a difference in one person's life this week? Like not even this day. Like don't, because it's a lot right now. Like people are. I'll speak for myself. Like it's a lot of stress, and there's anxiety, and there's uncertainty, and with 2 young kids at home, like everything is like your rhythms are thrown off, and there's no hockey on TV, and you know what I mean. So it's a lot.
Don't worry, your team wouldn't be doing any winning. That's for sure. Like your team would do a lot of losing.
How do I leave this conversation? Yeah, they do suck. I love them, but it's hard, man.
No, sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's good. I just I'm aware that there's so much going on right now. We have to be gracious to ourselves. I'm speaking this to myself, right? Just be gracious to ourselves, gracious to others. You can't do it all. Like, and I think something cool has been drawn out of people in this time. There is this desire of like, hey, I want to help my neighbor. I want to help someone, and that's good.
Yeah.
And we should do that. And as Christians, we're called to do that. But also it can be crippling, and it can become even an idol. And I wanted to share this. It was on my mind.
Giver.
Even coming into it, it's been on my mind all week. Jesus, he's visiting the home of Martha and Mary. I'll just read it. It says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to the village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, and she sat at Jesus' feet just listening to what he had to say. But Martha was very distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and said, Jesus, don't you care that my sister isn't doing anything? She's giving me all the work to do by myself. Tell her to get up and help me. Martha, Martha, Jesus answered, you're so worried and upset about all these things, but really few things are needed. Actually, just one. Mary has chosen what is the best, and it will not be taken away from her. And just that's something that has been on my mind this week, that we're called to, as Christians, if we follow Jesus, like, there's a lot of things that are important and they're good. And it's not like she was trying to make a meal and she's getting mad that like her sister was just being lazy. But in that moment, she was that kind of person who just like saw there's always tasks to do, and it's important things. You got to eat food. You got to do your job. You got to care for people. And yet in that, like, are we pausing in solitude? It says in one scripture, like in lonely places with God, where we just pause and be with him a lot. Like you said, your mind, that's where creativity can come, where you might speak to you, or you might just breathe, and again, it's hard to do that with young kids and circumstances, but just to find those windows, to fight for that time where we can get alone, sit at the feet of Jesus, because that is everything. He says that's the only thing that really matters. That influences all that we do as we go through our day, as we talk to people on podcasts, everything that if our soul and our heart is in a good place because we spent time with Jesus, we're not so much worried about, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to be impressive? Am I going to do that? So I just want to share that because it's something that God's teaching me this week, and I think it's a good message for all of us. So,
hey, Andrew, I just want to say thank you so much for jumping in. Obviously, we're cutting this one short. We could probably go for another hour easy. So we'll have to do a part 2. I'm going to have to give you a 5-star rating. Thank you so much for joining us. And hey.
Go Leafs, go.
Oh, my gosh. I can't even I'm cutting that out of the edit. I'm cutting that right out of the edit.